Snow across Scotland, gale force winds, temperatures dropping to -15. That's what we're re-looking at. I've examined the latest models from the Met Office and ECMWF, and we're re-seeing some rather unsettled conditions developing across the UK this afternoon and continuing through the weekend. Let me walk you through what's happening and what you need to know. Right now, the contrast across the country is quite noticeable. Across the southeast, particularly London and the home counties, conditions have been mild and damp. Temperatures running around 10 to 11 degrees Celsius this afternoon. That is actually above the seasonal average for late January. Combined with humidity levels sitting between 83 and 85%, it's feeling rather uncomfortable. Not cold, but that damp, clammy feel that gets into your bones. Compare that to what's happening further north. Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds are seeing temperatures around 6 degrees. Liverpool slightly warmer at 7 to 8. But it's Scotland where we are seeing the real winter conditions. Temperatures ranging from 6 to 8 degrees in the central belt, but the Highlands are experiencing significantly colder air. And it is not just cold temperatures. We are seeing persistent heavy rainfall across the southeast of Scotland, with snow settling on higher ground. The blustery winds are the notable feature today. Strong winds affecting most regions, with coastal areas experiencing gales in places, average wind speeds around 19 kilometers per hour. Now, I know we typically use miles per hour for wind speeds in the UK, so that's roughly 12 miles per hour average, but gusts are reaching considerably higher, making it feel rather colder than the actual temperature would suggest, particularly when you factor in that high humidity. Let me explain what's driving this pattern. We've got bands of showery rain that have been pushing northwards throughout the afternoon. The setup this morning was reasonably bright in some regions, but the rain has been moving in since late morning and is continuing through the afternoon period. This is classic Atlantic depression activity. A low-pressure system positioned to the west of Ireland is driving moisture-laden air across the UK, colliding with cooler air masses from the north. According to the Met Office analysis from 6 o'clock this evening, the pressure gradient is quite tight. We're re-looking at isobars packed closely together, which explains those strong winds. The jet stream is positioned in such a way that it's steering these Atlantic systems directly across the UK, rather than deflecting them north or south. Now, looking at the model guidance, the UKMO model and ECMWF are in strong agreement on the general pattern through tonight and tomorrow. Both show this unsettled regime continuing, with further showers or longer spells of rain. Where they differ slightly is in the detail of precipitation amounts for specific regions, but the broad picture is consistent. The GFS model, the American model, is slightly more aggressive with the rainfall totals for the southeast of Scotland. It's suggesting we could see another 20 to 30 millimetres of rain through tonight and into tomorrow morning. That's on top of what's already fallen. When you're dealing with saturated ground and persistent rainfall like this, you start to think about flooding potential. Let me break this down regionally, because the impacts are going to vary considerably depending on where you are. Starting with Scotland, the southeast of Scotland is bearing the brunt of this system. Heavy, persistent rainfall looks set to continue into this evening and overnight. We are not talking about brief showers here. This is sustained precipitation. The Met Office has rainfall warnings in place, and I'd expect the Scottish Environment Protection Agency to be monitoring river levels closely. For those in the borders, Lothian, Fife, you need to be aware of potential flooding, particularly in low-lying areas and near watercourses. The Highlands and higher ground across Scotland are seeing snow. Not surprising given the elevation and the fact that temperatures are hovering around freezing up there. This snow will continue through tonight if you are travelling on higher routes, the A9 through the Highlands, for example. Conditions will be challenging. Reduced visibility, snow settling on the road surface, and those strong winds creating drifting in exposed areas. Moving to Northern England, the northwest, Cumbria, Lancashire, you are in the firing line for showers through tonight and tomorrow. The Lake District will see snow on the higher fells. Not unusual for this time of year, but worth noting if you are planning any hill walking. The Pennines will act as a barrier, so we'll see orographic enhancement. That means the western slopes get the heavier precipitation, whilst areas to the eastern Yorkshire might see slightly drier conditions, though still plenty of cloud and blustery winds. Yorkshire and the Humber, you are looking at a rather grey, breezy day tomorrow. Showers moving through, but nothing particularly severe. Temperatures around 5 to 7 degrees. The northeast, similar story. Newcastle, Sunderland, Durham, expect cloudy skies, occasional showers, and those persistent strong winds. The Midlands have been experiencing rather quiet conditions. Birmingham sitting around 7 degrees, grey skies, not much happening. That continues through the weekend. Not particularly exciting weather, but nothing severe either. Showers moving through periodically, but no prolonged heavy rain like we are seeing in Scotland. Wales is interesting. North Wales has been wet today, near record rainfall in some areas this week. That rain continues tonight, but there is potential for a transition to sleet and wet snow on the higher ground of Snowdonia as temperatures drop slightly overnight. South Wales, Cardiff, Swansea, you are looking at rain continuing through tonight, easing somewhat tomorrow, but remaining unsettled. East Anglia and the east of England. Norfolk, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire. You've had a relatively quiet week. Temperatures mild, not much in the way of significant weather. That continues. You'll see some showers tomorrow, but nothing prolonged. The unsettled Atlantic influence is less pronounced this far east. The southeast, London, Kent, Surrey, Sussex. As I mentioned, it's been mild and damp. 10 to 11 degrees, high humidity, occasional rain. This continues through the weekend. Not severe, but persistently grey and rather miserable. With those humidity levels, you are not getting much in the way of brightness even when the rain stops. Cloud cover remains thick. The southwest, Cornwall, Devon, Somerset. You've been dealing with Atlantic weather all week. Mild temperatures, persistent rain at times. Somerset saw flood warnings this morning, and those remain in place. The ground is saturated. Any further heavy rain runs straight off rather than soaking in. If you are in Somerset levels, particularly around the areas that flooded badly in the winter of 2013 to 14, you'll remember how quickly conditions can deteriorate. We're not at that level yet, but at S worth monitoring. Now let S talk about the broader pattern through the rest of the week and into the weekend. The unsettled weather pattern looks set to continue right through to the weekend. We're not seeing any significant ridge of high pressure building in. The jet stream remains active, steering low pressure systems across the Atlantic towards the UK. Looking at the medium range forecasts, temperatures are expected to remain near average for late January, perhaps slightly above in the south, near or slightly below in the north. But here what S worth noting. The far north of Scotland could see temperatures turn rather cold by the weekend. The ECMWF extended forecast is hinting at the possibility of colder air pushing down from the Arctic by Sunday or Monday. Nothing definite yet, and at this range we need to maintain some caution, but it's something to watch. If that colder air does arrive, and it's still an if at this stage, we'd see a more significant snow risk across Scotland and potentially northern England. But we are 5 to 6 days out, and the models can change considerably at that range. I'll be monitoring the updates closely. Let me put this in some historical context. January in the UK typically brings challenging weather, high rainfall totals, limited sunshine, and those persistent grey skies. On average, London sees only about 2 hours of bright sunshine per day in January. That is just 19% of daylight hours. So if you are feeling like you've not seen the sun much, you are not imagining it. This is normal for the time of year. What we are seeing now is not unprecedented. The persistent rain across Scotland is significant, certainly, and flooding is a real concern in the southeast of Scotland. But we've seen worse. Many of you will remember the winter of 2013 to 14 when the Somerset levels were underwater for months, or the floods of 2007 that affected large parts of the Midlands and Yorkshire. This is uncomfortable and disruptive, but it's within the range of what we expect in a British winter. The winds are strong, but they were not exceptional. When we talk about gales, we're talking about sustained winds of 34 to 40 miles per hour, or gusts of around 50 miles per hour, compared to something like the Burnsday storm of 1990, where we saw gusts of 107 miles per hour, or the Great Storm of 87 with gusts exceeding 100 miles per hour. This is moderate. Worth paying attention to, certainly, but not a major storm event. Now, let's talk about what you need to do. Practical advice based on what is coming. For those in the southeast of Scotland dealing with the heavy rain, if you are in a flood-prone area, make sure you know where your flood defences are. Sandbags if you have them. Move valuable items upstairs if possible. Monitor the Scottish Environment Protection Agency website for flood warnings in your area. If you are advised to evacuate, do so. Try to drive through flood water. It's deeper and faster flowing than it looks, and it only takes about 30 centimetres of flowing water to move a car. Scotland more broadly, if you are on higher ground or travelling on upland routes, be prepared for snow and ice. Keep a winter kit in your car. Blanket, torch, some food and water, a fully charged mobile phone. If you are travelling the A9 or other Highland routes, check the Traffic Scotland website before you set off. Give yourself extra time, drive to the conditions, and to take risks. For everyone dealing with the blustery winds, secure any loose items in your garden. Wheelie bins, garden furniture, trampolines, these can become projectiles in strong winds. If you've got fences that are a bit dodgy, now is the time to shore them up before they come down completely. The Met Office is advising people to wrap up warm with several layers. That is sound advice. Even though temperatures aren't particularly low in the south, that combination of wind, rain, and high humidity means you lose heat quickly. Waterproofs or an umbrella are essential if you are heading out, and be prepared for those blustery conditions. If you are elderly or less steady on your feet, take extra care. Strong winds can knock you off balance. For those with respiratory conditions, asthma, COPD, this damp, changeable weather can be difficult. Make sure you've got your medication to hand. If you are feeling breathless or your symptoms are worsening, don't wait. Speak to your GP or call 111 for advice. There's been a lot of illness going around in recent weeks. People poorly with colds, flu, sinus trouble. Those temperature swings we've been seeing, mild one day, cold the next, back and forth, that is hard on the immune system. Unfortunately, we are not done with that pattern yet. Temperatures will continue to fluctuate through the week. For vulnerable people, the elderly, young children, those with health conditions, make sure they are warm and dry. Check in on elderly neighbours if you can. This weather is wearing, particularly when it's day after day of grey skies and rain. A friendly face and a cup of tea can make a real difference. If you are driving, visibility is reduced in the rain, and those strong winds can catch you unawares, particularly on exposed stretches of motorway or when passing high-sided vehicles. Slow down, increase your following distance, and use your headlights. It sounds obvious, but it's worth repeating. For those of you with gardens, this persistent rain means the soil is saturated. Don't be tempted to walk on lawns or work the soil until it dries out a bit. You'll compact it and cause damage that'll take months to recover. I know some of you are keen to get out there and start preparing for spring, but patience is needed. Looking at the bigger picture, what is driving this unsettled pattern? We've got the jet stream positioned across the UK, and it is quite active. When the jet stream is directly overhead like this, we get steered right into the path of Atlantic depressions, one low-pressure system after another. It's like sitting in the firing line. For the pattern to change, we need either the jet stream to shift position, moving north or south and taking the worst of the weather with it, or we'd need a blocking high-pressure system to establish itself. At the moment, neither of those things is showing up in the medium-range forecasts. The jet stream looks set to remain active, and high pressure remains elusive. The question everyone asks is, when will it improve? Honest answer, not in the immediate future. Through the weekend, unsettled conditions continue. Into next week, more of the same. We might see brief drier interludes, but the overall pattern remains unsettled. However, and this is worth noting, the models are hinting at a potential pattern change around the end of January into early February. Nothing definite, but there are some signals that we might see high pressure try to build. If that happens, we get a more settled spell. Whether that high pressure brings mild conditions from the Atlantic or cold conditions from the continent, that S still unclear. For now, we work with what we've got. Unsettled weather, rain, strong winds, and limited sunshine. It's not pleasant, but it is winter in the UK. We've all lived through this before, and we'll get through it again. One thing I want to emphasize is, don't let the constant grey skies and rain get you down more than necessary. I know it's miserable. Day after day of this weather is wearing. But it will change eventually. Weather is cyclical. This pattern won't last forever. In the meantime, practical steps. Stay warm, stay dry, look after yourself and those around you who might be vulnerable. Check the Met Office website regularly for updates, particularly if you've got travel plans. And if conditions do deteriorate in your area, if flooding becomes an issue or if the snow becomes significant, follow the advice of the emergency services. That's the situation as it stands this evening. Unsettled conditions continuing through tonight and tomorrow, persistent rain in Scotland, showers elsewhere, strong winds and temperatures near average. The pattern continues through the weekend with no significant change expected in the immediate term. I'll be monitoring the model updates over the coming days, particularly watching for any signs of that potential pattern change towards the end of the month. If the forecast shifts significantly, I'll update you. For now, batten down the hatches, keep your waterproofs handy, and